My name's Gray, I'm a creativity coach and creative magician, and I'm on a mission to spread some sneaky little oracle art pieces around my neighborhood. First, we gotta pull a tarot card to see what kind of message comes through. And here we have the Queen of Cups. So now I'm just gonna start doodling to my heart's content. I'm gonna make whatever marks feel right. I'm gonna let the messages flow. But, in an abstract way that makes it impossible to discern what the fuck I'm trying to say. But no matter, because now I'm gonna write some random nonsense on the back of the card, just riffing off of what I think the tarot card and the art piece are trying to say. And then I'm gonna package it up with a cute little sticker, and I'm gonna get it ready to hide it somewhere. Look at all of my sweet precious babies. Can you tell I'm feeling oh so devious? Here she goes. I'm sticking her on the she's in the window. She's in the take a book, leave a book. Oh, look at my baby go. They grow up so fast. And, I can't not put one behind the alien foot. Fly free, little doodle. This experiment was really important to me because I am a practitioner of the magical art of high strangeness, which is what I like to call sharing my art with the world and being loud and weird in public and hoping that I infect other people with the bug of high strangeness too, so that they want to make more art, so that they want to turn their lives into beautiful, magical performance art that makes you feel more alive and more engaged with reality. And to me, this is a very revolutionary act because currently everyone is sleepwalking through life, feeling miserable and not feeling very expressed and not feeling very connected to their own environment. So I hope that after seeing all of my shenanigans in this video, you want to go out and try something weird and creative too. Do it. Go make an art spell. You know you want to do it. You want to go make an art spell. Lately, I have been feeling this huge pull to create more art spells out in my city, out in my neighborhood, out in my physical world and physical environment. And what do I mean by art spells? An art spell is anything that uses some specific action or materials in the external world to bring a certain intention or energy or vibe that you want to feel and you want to experience more of into your physical 3D world. It's just taking the internal and propagating it outside of you. And there are so many different ways that you can do this. And currently I'm dreaming up lots of different schemes for more art spells. Like, you could literally sit outside your favorite bookstore or like in a park. Obviously, like if you're around a business, you're gonna have to get permission. But I think as long as you're not selling something, you don't have to get any permits to just like hang out in a park and like do something. But you could find some place to like hang out and offer like fortunes or offer like free compliments or something. Anything that feels like exciting to you and anything that helps you and the people around you to experience more of that vibe that you want to experience more of. And so like, the way that I have most recently done this, obviously, are my little like oracle art cards. I made some art and I wrote some like random little channeled messages and I hid them around for everyone to find, as you saw in the reel at the beginning of this video. And I did this because I want people to experience more whimsy, more spontaneity, more idiosyncrasy in their everyday lives. Like, I want people to realize that every day you can do one weird, quirky, strange thing to remind yourself that nothing is real and that you have free will and you can do whatever you want. If things start to feel boring, repetitive, expected, like if you know what's gonna happen every single day of your life, you're like trapped in some routine that you feel like chained to, that you feel caged in by, every day you can find one wacky, goofy action, even if it's just like, you could start your day by like writing out like some random channeled fortune for yourself. Like, this is how my day is gonna go, or this is something wacky that's gonna happen to me. And then you could like close up your little notebook and wait until the end of the day to read it back and see if that came true. Or write about what happened. you can find ways to turn your life into a role-playing game, into performance art. Like, that's what I'm so big on right now, is like, your life is already performance art, whether you're taking advantage of that fact or not. Like, you are a performance, if nothing else, for your own witnessing, or if you are wacky and spiritual like me, for the gods, for the spirits, for the nature spirits, for the whites of the land. Like, there is energy perceiving you, if only it's your energy, even if that's the only energy perceiving you. Wouldn't you want to make something exciting for yourself to experience? And by making something exciting for yourself to experience, maybe you end up exciting everyone around you too. Maybe you spread that infectious energy into your workplace, into your neighborhood, into like all of the different places that you frequent and inhabit. And I think that this is really something that we are being called to do on a collective level right now, because obviously I'm super into astrology. And right now, like, we're looking at a lot of air, fire, outer planets. And the outer planets tend to handle big collective themes. The transits take place across many, many years. Like, a single Pluto transit can be like 20 years. A single Neptune transit can be about 12, 13 years. An Uranus transit is a little bit shorter, but still we're looking at like 7 to 8 years. And that's why these planetary energies and these transits tend to have a lot to do, not just with us as individuals, but more so with the wider world, and how we as a species of humans are all experiencing something together and working through something together. And a lot of times, because of the themes of these planets, like especially Pluto and Uranus, how we are moving towards like a certain revolution, a certain breakup of what's breaking down to make way for something new. And of course, Aquarius tends to deal with a lot of themes around technology and around community and around like orthodoxy and dogma, like the systems that we create as humans that exist first as intellectual systems and then are practically expressed, are put into some kind of use in the outer world. The way we build our lives around the ideas that we generate and internalize. And so, of course, a lot of astrologers have been talking about like how this is going to affect us with like AI and how, a lot of our technological systems, social media included, is no longer serving the people. And that's why I think, because these algorithms are no longer serving us, because we're already seeing this massive breakdown in like how social media has risen up as our new replacement third space. All of the third spaces that we used to go to, Starbucks is now like getting rid of bathrooms and like, libraries are being shut down. All of the places where we used to be able to congregate for free and create community are slowly leaving us. There's no longer like communal and governmental support for them. So they're no longer there. And the internet has been our kind of default replacement for that. But now that the internet has been corporatized, now that it's been taken over by corporate interests, it's no longer about creating community and creating spaces that serve the community. It is now about making money. And that is causing our online community to suffer. And it's creating environments where no one wants to interact. Or if they do end up interacting, it's like in a very dysfunctional, negative way, because of how these algorithms are using our outrage, using our strong emotions to make money off of our attention. And so I think what Pluto and Aquarius is really asking us to do right now is not abandon social media and abandon technology, but to merge it with our outer world, to find a way to create physical communities and merge them with our online communities and create sort of like, to like create a digital infrastructure to support the physical infrastructure and to really solidify and optimize that physical infrastructure so that social media can't collapse our digital infrastructures and like silo us again and make us feel even more disconnected from ourselves and our communities. And so, like, one idea that I had for this, after I did my whole, like, little Oracle art thing, the major crux of that project is I want strangers to find it. I don't want this to be something of where I'm like talking to I live in Dallas, Texas, my Dallas-based audience and saying, like, here's where I'm hiding all the things, go find one. But then I started to think, if I did have enough of a Dallas-based audience, I'm not entirely sure that I do. My people are kind of like very spread out across the globe, as I'm sure a lot of us online are, and I don't use like geotags on my posts and stuff. So I don't know that I have enough of an audience base locally to do this. But I thought it would be really cool to create some kind of like community project like that where everyone is connecting with me online and seeing where I hide all the things, and you can actually go like find them like a scavenger hunt. And that could be a way of like actually connecting with my community and creating more like connection across digital and physical spaces. Like, this is something that I can't fully explain, even though I kind of just did, why I think this is like so important. That it just feels like I feel like there really is something here that we've kind of been missing in all of these conversations around how to create actual 3D community and not rely on social media, and how to kind of reclaim social media and make it work for us again. I feel like I have really hit on something here. And obviously, I'm not the only person to have these thoughts and have these ideas, but I haven't been exposed to people talking about this sort of thing or talking about it in kind of the way that I'm conceptualizing it. So I'm making this video to start a conversation. Because, look, I run an online business. I'm a creativity coach. I also make a lot of learning materials for creatives, and I put out lots of different like courses and books with lots of rituals and spells to help creative people connect with themselves, to connect with the energy that they're trying to express, and to really recolonize their own inner worlds. Which have a lot of times been colonized by corporate interests, by your direct environment, your culture, which maybe is not a culture that you necessarily want to have colonized you. Because again, I live in Texas and there's a lot of culture around here that I don't want to internalize, and I don't want that hijacking my own worldview and my experience of myself, most critically. So I do all of this stuff on the internet to make money. I don't feel any shame about that. I'm not trying to hide that. I'm trying to make a living. I put out a lot of like free resources because I want to actually help people. I don't want to just be a business trying to make money. I would also like people to benefit from these things that I have learned and put them into practice themselves and see if it works for them and see if it helps them to engage more deeply with reality and to feel more alive in the way it did me. But money making is a part of it. I have to survive. I have to live. This is how I do that. And consequently, that has meant that I do a lot of social media marketing, and I do a lot of like trying to build an audience and building a community online so that I can not only get paid, but also offer more free things so that I have like the financial support and the energetic support to be able to provide more free resources and help those free resources to reach more people. And focusing exclusively on the internet and building community over the internet has been frustrating because of what I'm talking about with all of these algorithms that have been hijacked by corporations. Because they are not trying to help people like me, small creators, reach larger audiences anymore. They're trying to use us like workhorses, like cogs in a machine, and they're trying to burn us out and sap us of all of our energy the same way these corporations do to their actual workers. Like, the guy behind the counter at Starbucks, the person in the warehouse at Amazon. All of that shitty energy, shitty ethic has now been brought online digitally. And now we're doing basically what we've been trying to do to artists for many decades, which is extract from them. So that whole journey has been frustrating, especially because I have to somewhat compromise my art to allow it to be seen, to get it through the pipeline of these algorithms that are trying to make our attention spans smaller and smaller and trying to make us more and more dysregulated. So like now, a video that might have like a very specific rhythm where it's not just like fast-paced information, there are not a lot of cuts to try to like hold your interest. I'm actually trying to take you on a journey. I'm kind of modulating your emotions and modulating your energy in the same way you would see like if you've ever watched any kind of performance, any kind of like dance, any kind of singing, anything of that nature is going to have peaks and valleys. That like it's not supposed to be one note throughout. You watch a movie, there's like a rising action, a climactic event, and a falling action. They are modulating your emotions, taking you on a journey to try to give you a certain experience, and that is the art. The art is in the rhythm and in the like buildup. And that's what I love about art. I love how a really impactful like long pause or silence, or like bringing your tone up, getting really gregarious, and then moving it back down to be more quiet and more drawn in, and like we're kind of bringing your attention back down. I love that like sort of energetic roller coaster that art takes me on. That's why I became an artist. That's why I like doing art, because I like curating an emotional experience for people, not just trying to capture their attention and not just trying to like manipulate them like jangling keys in front of a baby, you know? But unfortunately, algorithms are really deprioritizing that sort of content. I don't want to harp too much on this because this is kind of stuff that like if you're an artist and you're here listening to me right now, you've already heard it, you already know, you are probably running up against it in your own creative practice and trying to share your art online. And that is what really makes this work especially draining. And I've really had to work on my mindset in how I relate to digital spaces and how I relate to marketing and like how I'm thinking about putting my art out there for free through these algorithms and the sort of like sacrifices that I'm making in order to do that and in order to reach more people and build community. And ultimately, I feel like I've made it work. I feel like I've managed to do this without feeling completely soul-sucked and feeling like I've had to make too many creative compromises, but it still comes back every once in a while. I still have moments where I'm like, wow, I wish I could just upload this thing like as I had envisioned. Like maybe I've got a 5-minute video and it has like a slower start, a slower build, where you don't know exactly like where it's gonna go yet. You don't know whether you're going to be interested. You have to stick around for a couple minutes. Obviously not long, because it is still like good creative principle and a good principle of performance art that you want to, you know, a hook has always been part of a good like creative writing essay, a good book. Like obviously like it is part of good artistic principle to try to do something to tell your audience why they would be interested in sticking around up front so that they're willing to go with you on that sort of slow journey. But inevitably, I'll have a video that is a little bit longer with a slower start, and I know that it's not going to be shown to people on Instagram because reels that get promoted and shown to new audiences are 3 minutes or less. And people on there are really just looking for fast eye candy. And that's not like a criticism of how people are using social media, because I think it's fair that all of us have so much going on in our daily lives. And whenever we come to social media, we're not really coming necessarily always for high art. It's nice to find it sometimes. It's nice when you're in a space to receive that. But it's also perfectly fine to just want that candy every once in a while. You know? It's just like literal candy. You don't want it to be your entire diet, but it's okay to enjoy a nice, sweet snack that requires very little commitment and has very little nutritional value every once in a while. It's not hurting you. It's actually good for you. So this is not at all a criticism of people on social media and how they're consuming content, but it is frustrating for me as a creator because I'm like, where do I put these things where I know they will get seen? It's even like difficult now to, and has been for many years. I do remember a time on YouTube when it was a lot easier to please the algorithm and it was a lot easier to, you didn't really have to game the algorithm as much. But now like things are not promoted as freely. It's harder to like gain traction on these platforms and you have to be very strategic. And all of that strategy sometimes feels really draining as an artist because it takes energy away from making the actual art. And, again, I feel like my Libra rising is coming out here where I'm trying to really present both sides, because it's like, as much as that is true, there's also truth here to the fact that I sometimes see statements about how artists used to just get to be artists and they didn't have to like think about business and they didn't have to think about strategy. That's not true. That's just not true. Artists have always had to appeal to some kind of gatekeeper. And they've always had to find a way to make money. And they've always had to find a way to raise awareness about their art to gain an audience. Like, there's always been a degree of strategy and business required in the arts. But I get what people are saying when they say these things. They do have a point in that we could be creating environments where artists don't have to do as much of that. It's kind of like how there's this big conversation right now around AI of like, why are we using AI to make visual art that visual artists already could make and honestly do better, at least in my opinion and many other people's. Why aren't we using AI to take away the shitty menial jobs that people have to do? All of the sort of grunt work that actually takes away from that creative work. Why aren't we using AI, using technology, using all of these systems to minimize the work that steals energy from the core creative work, which is also nourishing and fulfilling in a way that the menial labor at a certain point is not. And so, like, that's a very real criticism. It's a very real complaint. And this is why I find myself getting increasingly exhausted in focusing exclusively on social media and how I'm getting more eyes on my work. Like, I don't like having to think about that much. Obviously, no artist does. And it does reach a point where you've kind of developed like an excessive focus on that, to the point where it really starts to become draining. You start to become like out of contact with that spark, that desire to create that motivates you to do all this in the first place. Which is why I'm trying to come up with ways to put myself out there more in the community and like really create experiences, not just for myself, but for other people as well, where we can all build relationships. And it's because part of my work and why I do what I do is I want to encourage more people to explore their creativity because, as I said earlier, I believe that creating art helps you to feel more alive and helps you to feel more engaged with your reality. Like, whenever I go out to my favorite little hiking spot and I sit by the creek and I like watch some ducks play and I'm like writing about the ducks and I start thinking about like, if they were like humans, what would they be thinking? Or like, what's going on in their little duck consciousness? Or like, I see a log that has like a bunch of holes in it, and then I start imagining it as like little like wormholes to other dimensions. It's like when I'm doing that, I'm being extremely present with what's happening around me, and I am directly connecting with my external reality. I'm not just watching nature, I am now bringing myself to the nature and bringing my own like inner symbol system, my own sort of perspective of reality, my own creative perspective, and I'm overlaying it over my environment in a way that helps me feel like I'm actually relating to the creative phenomena happening around me. And I'm not just like passively experiencing it. And obviously, it's good to passively experience sometime. Like, that is like an important nutritive aspect of humaning that is very relaxing and regulating to the nervous system. But it's kind of like if you just meditate all day long, it's not going to actually make you more regulated, because there's not enough variety in your sort of like meditative, contemplative diet, just like sitting there, eyes closed all day trying to relax. And also because you're not confronting yourself with challenging stimuli. You're not stressing the nervous system enough that it needs to learn how to kind of cope with stressful situations. And that's why, like, you can't just do meditation all day long every day where you're sitting down closing your eyes. You need to like go on contemplative walks. You need to fill your meditative diet with other types of contemplative meditative nutrition. And it's really the same thing with like creativity, that sometimes just passively observing reality is great, and it's a great way to take in more inspiration. But at a certain point, we have to metabolize the inspiration, and that's where the active engagement element comes in. And so, of course, this is great for creativity, but it's also really great for our nervous systems and really great for our mental and physical health. it is important for us as humans to feel like we are connected to what's happening around us, that we're connected to the people in our environments and also to the nature in our environments and the events of our environments. We need to feel connected to the environment. And we have lost contact with how to actually do that. And that is where creativity comes in. Creativity becomes a way to feel deeply connected to your reality and to feel like I'm not just going through the motions, I'm not just existing, stuff is not just happening to me. I am in a collaborative relationship with my reality and with my outer world. And also how the outer world feeds into my inner world, the relationship between my outer world and inner world. And this is why I think creativity is so important and why I want to get this message to as many people as possible. And that includes people in my actual community. People that honestly might not be super likely, like they may not be out there on the internet, like consuming creativity content. They may be so disconnected from and estranged from their creativity that like what they might experience through my little like oracle art project or like other little schemes that I cook up might remind them that there's a part of them that still craves play. And there's a part of them that still craves like an active relationship with themselves and with their environment. And that's why I want to do more of these funky little experiments. Like another thing that I've also seen a couple different people do is they'll like take a really long roll of paper and they'll put it out against like a wall somewhere, like somewhere in public where everybody can come along and like grab some markers and start like drawing on this thing, and you create like a community mural. That's another thing that I would really like to do that is gonna involve like a lot of energy and a lot of executive function and planning on my end. So that is probably like a longer term goal that I'm really gonna have to like think about and like make sure that I have money for like the supplies and everything, because kind of on a shoestring budget in my life. But I want to start trying to do more things like this and start trying to actually like plant seeds in my community, even if it's just like I printed out like a little card with my blog link at the bottom and just like a cute little design and some text to kind of encompass like my general philosophy and stuff. And I put it up in my local art store, my local like Jerry's Artorama. And I'm gonna start like printing out more of those and just looking for random places to stuff it, or potentially like using them as business cards to just give out to people that I run into. I'm trying to dream up more plans and I'm trying to scheme more schemes for how I can take this feeling of aliveness that I feel when I'm like really securely rooted in my inner world and my creative practice, and I'm like actively engaged and constantly making things, even if they're just like silly little random doodles or silly little random thoughts in my notebook. I want to take that energy and I want to propagate it. I want to spread it more into my community and my digital community, which is why I'm trying to document some of this stuff. And I'm trying to hopefully inspire more people to do these things too, because I would really like to receive these things in my community. I would love to find like a little random message that someone wrote on some paper. Like, doesn't have to be fancy. Like, just write a funky little message somewhere and hide it. Hell, write Free Palestine on some paper and hide it. Like, write whatever you feel and hide it and let someone else discover it and feel that like connection to a stranger. Like, just imagine like finding something like that and just wondering to yourself, like, I wonder who made this, and like I wonder like what other cool funky little things they're doing in their life. And I feel like so touched that I got to discover that like this is something they made for me, not even knowing like who I was, who was gonna find it. Like, that's love from a stranger that I got to receive. And that's incredible generosity. Like, maybe this sounds cheesy to you. And look, I get it, because me, probably like 10 years ago, I would have thought this all sounded very trite and cheesy too. I didn't have a lot of emotional capacity, and so I often found like attempts to connect with people or to just feel deep gratitude for the little things that happen in your life and in your environment. I found it to be very silly, because I was so emotionally shut down and I was so traumatized that I couldn't let that gratitude or that connection with a stranger, or that like that appreciation in. I could not allow those types of emotional experiences in. And so it was easy to just dismiss them as like, oh, like the only people who would feel something about this or who would like have an emotional response to this is someone who's never been through anything. Like I would just assume that like the people who enjoy this, they must have easy lives and they must have the emotional depth of a kiddie pool. But I have actually found out from deeply personal experience that it's the opposite. It is often like the people who have the greatest emotional depth who can really like receive those moments and those emotional experiences fully and really deeply feel them because they have a large range of sensation. They have a large range of emotion and like a wide emotional intelligence. So they can be with you in really dark experiences, really difficult and complex experiences, but they also have space for those apparently lighter and more simple experiences. Although I think that's because they realize that those things aren't actually less emotionally complex than really dark, difficult things. Like, it's just that someone who has mostly or only experienced really dark, difficult things does not have the range of sensation to perceive all of the emotional texture and all of the emotional depth in those lighter, happier experiences. But that's also, again, why this is so important. And it's so important, like, for people who are maybe not attuned to that sort of like levity in their lives to receive these things, is because having those experiences helps the nervous system to attune to them and to create more space to receive them in the future. It's something that you actually have to practice, feeling these different types of emotions and being open to this other part of the emotional spectrum that maybe hasn't even been available to you before. So you've never learned to digest it. Back at the end of May, I wrote this book that then turned into this massive course called The Magical Art of High Strangeness. And the whole concept of high strangeness is just that exciting feeling you get, that like, holy shit, magic is real feeling that you get when you take something that previously existed just as an idea or a vibe and you concretize it in your physical world. You find a way to express that thing, giving it more weight in your external reality. Basically, I was talking about art spells. The whole thing is about art spells. Whether it's curating like a fun movie night for your friends or like cooking up a nice fancy meal and whispering your intentions into it, like whatever it is, big or small, anytime you take an energy you want to feel and you propagate that outside of you in some way, you're creating an art spell and you are engaging in high strangeness. And the handbook I wrote is available to anyone. It's available as a standalone product. I had initially like conceived of it as a pamphlet because I thought of this as like, this is my revolution. This is what I think is going to really break down all of these like shitty oppressive systems in the world, is helping people to create more basically self-resourcing. These art spells, like taking the energy you want to feel and putting more of it out there, finding ways to experience more of it and to draw that energy deep down into your body. That is self-resourcing. It is building like the energy and the resistance in the nervous system to get through all of the stressful shit that is currently happening in this very shitty modern culture that we've created that is literally genociding people on our tax dollars. I really think it's that serious. I think that this is what is actually going to help us make solid change, help us make real change and actually dismantle these systems, is being able to self-resource and being able to hold that vision of the world that we want to live in so that we don't lose what actually energizes us to create change. Because I tell creatives this all the time, that a lot of times when you start really struggling to create, it's because you've lost that embodied experience of your desire. You've lost contact with that spark of excitement to create and why you create. And you don't get it back by just thinking about why you create, though that's certainly part of it. And I highly encourage people to journal about, why do I create? What do I feel so, like I'm burning to express? Like, what feels so important to express to me because it is somehow a part of who I am in this world? But you don't just get there by thinking about it. You get there by finding ways to experience that energy. You have to actually ask yourself, like, how do I connect to that energy? What is it that I do in my daily life? What kind of experiences help me to feel that and spread that feeling through my entire body? Maybe for you, that's dancing. Maybe whenever you're really deeply listening to music and you're pulling it down into your body and you're allowing yourself to respond to that energy and to express it in the moment, maybe that builds up so much desire and excitement in you that it makes you want to go write some poetry, or it makes you want to go like draw a picture. Like maybe that's what really energizes you in your creative practice and helps you to feel that that essence of your purpose and what you're here to create. Maybe what makes you feel really inspired to create is like going outside and spending some time like watching your bird feeder and talking to the birds. And maybe that is what really like fills you up with that energy to create. Maybe it's like talking to your best friend. Maybe you feel like I have this friend that I have great conversations with, and every single time I leave those conversations, it makes me want to go out and write something. It makes me want to process all these ideas that come up in conversation. I feel fired up to create after talking to this person. But you see what I'm saying? Like, you have to find an actual experience, an actual action, a tangible practice to put that theory into action, to put that energy into action, to draw more of it into your body so that it's not just an idea that lives in your brain. It's an energy that lives inside your cells. So that's why I wrote the handbook for the magical art of high strangeness, because I wanted people to kind of grok why it is so important to turn your life into an art spell and to view it as performance art and to find more ways to make it exciting and enlivening both to yourself and ideally others. But then when I got into writing the actual course, I was thinking more about like, how do we actually teach creatives to be self-resourcing? What underlying components of creative practice help us to actually express the vision that is in our heads, or to make contact with that vision and to get clarity on that vision? Like, if you've been sitting there like, I feel that I want to create something, I feel this pull, this tug, this desire, but I can't see it, and I don't know how it wants to be expressed. Or maybe you know how it wants to be expressed and you just can't seem to summon the energy and like sort of catalyze yourself into action. Like, what aspects of creative practice help us to get over these hurdles and actually start turning our lives into an art spell? So the course itself is very much about getting back in contact with your inner world, recolonizing yourself, getting to know all of your inner parts, and also learning energetic intelligence, learning how to relate to your inner and outer world and those sort of like etheric energies that are non-visible but around us at all times, ready to collaborate with us, asking to be expressed. How do we learn to work with those energies, to make contact with them, to move them through our bodies and sort of like ferment that energy so that it eventually coagulates into a concrete image, into a concrete vision? And so that we can keep returning to that energy and allowing it to energize us and catalyze us into action. Almost all the creatives that I talk to are stuck somewhere in the creative process. They might have a particular creative project that they're trying to help come into being, or they might be like searching for what that creative project is and like how they want to apply themselves. I like to use a fourfold elemental model, and they almost always come to me thinking that there's some way that they're going to think their way out of it, or some kind of hack on the cognitive, intellectual, like airy level of their practice that's going to like fix everything for them. But what usually ends up being the case is that they actually need to let go of all of these attachments they have to like, this is what creativity is supposed to look like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, this is what would ultimately fulfill me, but I have to do all of this other stuff. Like, you know, I'm tired of like just creating random sketches and prototypes. Like, what is the thing that I'm here to create? They have all these attachments to like some specific shape in which they think their creativity is supposed to take and is supposed to express itself. But what they actually need is to sink back down into that inner world and then bring what is in there, bring those inner contents of the imagination and that energy, that feeling of what you feel excited and energized to express out into the outer world and play with it. And stop thinking like, okay, today I'm just going to write a book. Today I'm going to write an article. Today I'm going to make a painting. And instead be like, today I'm going to play with the energy. I am going to experiment with this energy. I'm going to trust the process and I'm going to have fun with it. And today might not be the day that I write that book or that article or make that painting. But today is the day that I get a little bit closer to that by not trying to get close to it at all. Which sounds very paradoxical. Welcome to the paradoxical universe, my friend. Welcome to fractal reality. That in order to get the thing you want, usually you have to stop trying to go after the thing you want. And that doesn't mean that you completely abandon the plan, the intention, because, walking around rudderless isn't exactly a solution to anything. But you allow that intention for what you want to create or what you want to be doing or what you want to be experiencing in the back of your consciousness, in the back of your mind. And you sort of plant that like a seed in the soil of your unconscious. And then you just keep watering it. You keep doing different creative experiments. You keep coming back home to yourself and just asking, what in me wants to be related to and wants to be talked to and wants to be worked with today. You keep pouring the water on that seed, and eventually it starts to sprout. It starts to germinate. It starts to eventually bear fruit. And that is really what I designed the magical art of high strangeness to help creatives do. I designed this to help walk them through the foundations of that practice so that they can actually do the creative work that they envision for themselves. And so that they can feel fully creatively expressed, maybe not in the way they think they want to, but in the way that's going to feel the best to them. And really the only way to find that is just through experimentation. And for years, I have been doing that experimentation largely in the dark. I had no one to walk me through this sort of spirally alchemical process of creativity that really developed into my spiritual practice. And it was messy. And a lot of the times I was running these experiments, I kept asking myself, is this doing anything? Is any of this actually gonna work, or am I just trying weird shit and being weird for no apparent purpose? But I kept trusting the process because I know that a good experiment, you have your hypothesis and then you have to actually run the experiment. If you stop the experiment early, you'll never find out if the hypothesis was correct. You have to really put it to the test rigorously. So I did. I put it to the test rigorously for several years. And finally, after several years of doing this work, it started to bear fruit. And I started having all this clarity on my sort of, what I like to call my God self, the archetype of creativity that I'm here to embody. And the archetypal form of what I'm here to express. And everything just started making sense. I also started feeling so inspired all the time to make art. I had so many ideas, I didn't even know what to do with all of them. But instead of being in a situation like I've been in the past where I felt waterlogged with ideas and I didn't know what to act on, I couldn't feel into what felt most important for me to express in the moment. Everything just kind of was yelling at me at the same level of what do I do first? None of these really feel like I can't assess a priority from any of these. I went from feeling like that to feeling almost like all of my ideas were kind of organizing themselves into this timeline according to my felt sense of my own desire. I could really feel into this sort of pool of ideas emerging, and it's sort of holding that energy and holding that intention or archetype of my God self and what I'm here to express creatively helped sort of magnetize certain ideas to the surface so that I created this nice little timeline of projects. And over time, relating to the energy, the timeline changed. I would start to realize, okay, I thought I was going to do this next, but actually this thing feels more important. Or an idea would come out of left field and I would just be okay, I have to drop everything and I have to focus on this. But I stopped having a graveyard of unfinished projects and no clue what is actually going to feel important enough for me to finish. And I started actually finishing things. And I started also experiencing a lot less burnout. It was easy for me to consistently be creating and consistently be engaged in my creative process, whatever that looked like at the time. So sometimes my creative practice is more externally focused, more project focused, And other times it's more internally focused. It is more self-relation focused. It's more relating to the energy focused. But either way, I am constantly engaged in my creative practice. I don't have huge lapses where I'm just not making things anymore. In one form or another, I'm always making things. I'm always doing things. I'm staying active and also getting plenty of time to relax. I'm not telling anyone to like hustle here, but you get the picture, hopefully. And so I ran all of these funky experiments over several years based on these very spiritual ideas I had about how creativity functions and how to actually be in creative practice. And out of that theory, I developed an actual praxis. I developed actual practical methods for putting these ideas into action. And I think that's the important aspect of this work. That it can't just be a theory in your head. You have to find a way to actually experiment with the theory and see if you get real results. So I developed this whole course to help you put my practices into practice and to also adapt them to work for you so that you can build the creative practice of your dreams and also learn a lot of cool magic in the process. Because this course covers astral travel, it covers energetics and embodiment. There's theurgy, thaumaturgy, alchemy. There's many different strains of magical working and magical practice built into this course. I've basically given you a huge sampler of all these different things that I've tried so that you can learn what works for you and what aspects of magic work really well for your creative practice and get you the results that you want. And out of this course, I developed this whole program for creative magicians called the Court of the Rising Sun. And it is a solar cult devoted to helping people get in contact with the God self, get in contact with that core of their self and their core creative desires, and find ways to expand and proliferate that energy, and to basically engage in the revolutionary work of making art out of yourself, out of your own experience, out of your own perspective of the world, so that then other people can connect with you, and other people can also feel inspired to make their own art and keep proliferating this very energizing, very nourishing energy of high strangeness that will disrupt all of the oppressive systems that are currently actually killing people right now. Because yes, it is that serious. Over the last couple months, starting in June, I've been running this program. I've been doing lots of cool rituals with all of my lovely participants, and I am so eternally grateful to you guys for being in this experiment with me, because this is the first time I've run a program of this nature. I've done other programs in the past. I've done one other program like this in the past, except it was nothing like this. This is truly a very out there experiment for me. And you guys have really gotten in on the ground floor and been my test dummies. But now on August 11th, we are opening up a new enrollment period. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do these every 3 months or so, so that new people can sort of filter in, get oriented, and just slide right into the creative magical shenanigans. But you'll have from August 11th to August 25th to put in an application, do a quick 15-minute phone call with me, and decide if you're right for the program. And then on September 1st, you will all be invited into the digital space on Discord and in Notion, which is our group grimoire. And we'll do our little orientation practice. I will take you up to the special astral space that I've created to resource all the participants and help them perform their own creative and spiritual experiments. And then you'll be off, you'll be in, and you'll get to try all these cool things that we do every single month. Because every month we do a group ritual, we do a low pressure chill sesh, just everybody drops in and talks over the course of an hour or two. And then I do one live Q&A call every month, which you can come and ask me questions about pretty much anything spanning my entire work. Because everyone who joins COTARS, which is how I pronounce the abbreviation of Court of the Rising Sun, because it sounds better, gets access to the Magical Art of High Strangeness course. So if you want to go through and do that course and also get a little bit of additional support from me, you can ask questions in the Discord, you can ask questions live at that Q&A. You'll have a lot of access to me to support you in this process, and you'll also get a massive discount because currently the program costs $111 a month and the course is $666 for all of the guided meditations, all of the worksheets, for your starter grimoire, all of the educational materials. And it involves no live support from me. You are on your own unless you want to like schedule a coaching call. And I do free consults if you are going through the course and you would like to just ask some quick questions, you know, nothing too serious. So you get access to all of that as part of the Qatar's program. And you also get access to, like I mentioned earlier, on Notion, our group grimoire, which I'm hoping as more people join, it will really fill out with a bunch of people's like sort of community resource spells and information. Like maybe if you read a really cool book on astrology and you made some notes, you could upload that to the Notion grimoire. Or like if you found this cool free course and you want to upload that to the Notion grimoire. Or just like a breakdown of a spell you tried and that you've been trialing over a couple months and you want other people to try it too. Like I really want it to be like community sourced information. Also, one thing that I've just started experimenting with that I want to do more in this program is offering little like inquiry prompts and little breakdowns of current major astrological transits or interesting aspects coming up and how you can work with them and what you're maybe being guided to explore about yourself and your reality at this time astrologically. And I also might start doing some little like drop-in days where I hang out in one of the voice channels and you can just like come and co-work with me or like chat a little bit. I think that would be really fun. And we have like some very interesting astrology coming up for that on the 11th. So I may do one that day. I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about a bunch of different things that I want to start experimenting with in this program. But so far, the rituals themselves have been awesome. Everyone who's been showing up and participating in them has had a like great experience. And it's been very exciting to get to actually practice some of this stuff live with you guys and chat about it. So I hope if you're watching this and any of this sounds fun to you, I hope that you will put in your application on August 11th, and I will have a link for the application down below in the description. I'll also have a link below for the Magical Art of High Strangeness handbook and course if you want to get a taste of that and get some ideas for how you can start applying the art of high strangeness in your life and in your creative practice. So thanks so much for coming with me on this journey of all of my current thoughts around creativity and art spells and high strangeness, and I hope to see you next time. Oh, bye-bye.